All right, Shalom.
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 All right, first and foremost, we have to give all the praises, honor, and glory unto the Heavenly Father and His only begotten Son, Yahweh,
Yahweh,
Ba'ashem,
Yahushai,
Shal Shai,
Yahweh
Ba'ashem,
Hashem,
Hashem,
Rukah Kadash.
Rakakadash.
All right, double honors and respect to our apostles and elders, a great millstone, who rule
most of
well and taught us this truth. I would also like to say peace and salutations to the Lord's elect, the hopeful elect in the one third. This is your brother Salah.
Brother Barak.
So,
All right, and today's lesson, we gonna go into some various topics, but we're gonna start out, with Isaiah chapter 24, verse 11, speaking about the mirth, being gone in Babylon, right? So, so starting off at verse 11, there is a crying for wine in the streets, all joy is darkened, the mirth of the land is gone, right? We no longer in the time of partying, having fun, enjoying feasting, man. Just like like yesterday, everyone was enjoying Thanksgiving, man. What the fuck is there doing to enjoy Babylon the Great, man? Everything's dying off, everything's diseased, man. These devils, they keep releasing new bioweapons, man. Like yesterday, we talked about kill gates or kill baits. Setting off them biologically engineered ticks that makes people violently allergic to the red meat, man. The Lord Yahweh Shem Shai, man. He's sending off these plagues, right? Right, verse 12. In the city is left desolation, and the gate is smitten with destruction. When thus it shall be in the midst of the land among people, there shall be as the shaking of an olive tree, right? So there's gonna be a time of testing, man. This time of testing is approaching rapidly, and as the gleaning grapes, when the vintage is done, they shall lift up their voice. They shall sing the majesty of the Lord Yahweh Bashim Al Shai, and cry aloud from the sea, man. Man, that's gonna be the elect, when they get delivered, man. And the brother Yahweh saw posted, Matthew chapter 24, verse 7, where it says here, "For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There shall be famines and pestilence and earthquakes in diverse places," right? And that's what we're seeing being made manifest right now, man. The hot topic today, man. That brother's brought out. This is from the brother of the Arrows Indignation 144. Subscribe to his channel, but this video right here, it basically covers the shootings that happened in D.C. yesterday, right? Those two National Guards, right. So Esau's getting ready to stir the pot, right? He's getting ready for that sedition among men, right? He's getting ready to to come down with that with that great wrath, man. With that hammer. All right, Matthew 20, chapter 24, verse 21. For then shall be great tribulation, as such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, no, nor ever shall be, right? Right, and that's gonna be the time of Jacob's trouble, right? Now we are in the beginning stages of Jacob's trouble, right? But eventually, right? It's gonna get to a point, where it's gonna be full blown, where SHTF,
Um,
and you just see mass violence in the streets.
I don't know if you brought this out. This book of Job 2023. It says, when he is about to fill his belly, Yahweh Shem Yahushai shall cast the fear of his wrath upon him and shall rain it upon him while he's eating. So right now, this devil is trying to basically fill his belly, and he's gonna also, that's gonna start off. That's gonna ultimately, you're gonna see that when he starts chipping everybody, giving everybody that MOTB, right? Putting people in, camps, right? Concentration camps, right? Start controlling people, and that's important. Why this you shouldn't be associating yourself with unbelievers because right. And this book of Ephesians 5:11 it says, "Have no fellowship with unfruitful works of darkness, but rather reprove them." Right. So you don't want to be around these unbelieving ass people. Why? Because these people are gonna get lined up to the fucking take that, you know, C hip, man. That micro C hip, which is the MOTB.
That's right, Akim. The same people that that mock and scoff, the men of the Lord and this truth, right? Because they want to continue in their own folly, because of their lust of this world, man. They're the same motherfuckers, man. They're gonna perish on this side, man. Mainly speaking about 2/3 of Israel, but as well as these heathens and these fucking Edomites, man. Man, they're gonna receive that judgment. All right, all right, brother Nawaha, 144K, posted Second Ezra chapter 15 verse 16. For there shall be sedition among men, right, and invading one another. They shall not regard their kings nor princes. In the course of their actions shall stand their power, right, and that's what and that's what's ready, and that's what's getting ready to be to be built up, right, So before yeah, so before I play this brother's video, I'm gonna read the copyright disclaimer. You see it on the screen. Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976. Allowances. All right, copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976. Allowances made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, education, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing non-profit, educational, or personal use. Tips the balance favor of fair use, right? So I just read that right here. We're playing the video right now.
The National Guard are bait. They were always supposed to be bait. At least, according to this administration, which is why I think this DC shooting should be a moment of very serious reckoning with that fact for members of the National Guard, as well as, by the way, members of ICE, law enforcement agencies, the armed forces. You are tools of provocation. We talk a lot about how this administration is very clearly trying to provoke unrest and the harm that comes to those who are targeted. But we don't talk enough about those who are being used to do the targeting. You are expendable to them. They are using you to provoke. And yes, I mean you too, if you're involved in the boat attacks or anything like that. Though I do suspect some ICE officers are well aware of this. Otherwise, why would they be spending so much time going after non-violent, non-criminals as opposed to the ones that they're probably more scared of? And just in case you have no idea what I'm talking about, 2 National Guard members in DC were reportedly shot today. While it was first reported that they had lost their lives, apparently they are actually in critical condition. And while many of us condemn this in no uncertain terms, we're also completely unsurprised. This was their goal. Mind you, the suspect has already been apprehended, and according to officials on the ground, it was a lone wolf attack. So what is the purpose of 500 more National Guard troops in DC? You contradict yourselves. You know that your purpose to this administration is not to make this country safer. It is to bait this country. And they don't care what happens to you in that process. Actually, that's not quite true, though, is it? They only care about how useful you are to them. And if you're more useful to them when you're injured or, God forbid, dead, that's what they want. What happened today did not need to happen. And it is not those National Guard members' fault that they were shot today. But it is Trump's. Remember that.
The guy was vetted by the CIA because he was working with the CIA in Afghanistan. He was working with the CIA in Afghanistan. So how are you going to tell us that he was not vetted? He came to America. You thought he just retired? He was on the beach somewhere? If he was working with the CIA and he knew the faces of the CIA, when he came to America, he probably was working with the CIA to infiltrate sleeper cells in Muslim communities to work with the CIA. You're not going to sit here and try to give me an account strike and shut me up for saying how the CIA didn't know that this man did that shit. It sounds like a psyop to hearten the disposition of the National Guards against the American citizenry. To change the rules of engagement, how the National Guard looks at the American citizens. And now you need 500 more National Guard troops for a guy who allegedly drove from Washington State all the way to Washington us. So if I was the governor, like I said, I would pull my troops out of Washington, D.C. I would pull my National Guards out of there. Because how could this be possible? And you're trying to make it a red and blue thing, but the protocols and procedures for the CIA and vetting of former military coming to the United States of foreign nations should not be blue or red. It should be protocols and procedures, and it should be it should go through multiple administrations. Nothing should have changed. He was a foreign military man that came to the United States. So how you don't have eyes on him? You're lying. You're all lying, and you're trying to do this against the National Guard so the National Guard can do whatever you got planned in Washington, D.C. What you're doing in America, what you're doing against the citizenry, and what you're doing with the troops and against the Constitution is wrong. And the Republicans should be ashamed of themselves for being enough cowards to not say anything and save their children and their grandchildren for what they plan to have carried out in this damn country. The guy was vetted by the CIA, and you're not going to sit up there and think that if you're in the CIA and you retire, you're just not in the CIA no more. No. Why do you think Eric Snowden ran to Russia? He could have got a pardon or something for what he did. But he left Russia. He left America to go to Russia because he know once you in the CIA, you're never out. It's like a gang. Like,
Yo,
come on, man. Stop,
we can't hear the video. Yeah, put on a screen record or a screen. We can't hear it.
Oh, Slocky about that.
There you go.
Better. Stop thinking that you're just gonna pull a wool over our eyes.
Yeah, so so basically, right, that's Revelation, 13 on down, man. It talks about two horns like a lamb, but spake as a dragon, right? Right, so basically, right, as you heard that, that woman said, right, these devils, right, they're gonna use their own people, right, they're gonna use their own government and military people and CIA members, to create a psyop, right, by literally sacrificing, two of their own National Guard members, right, to get killed by a sniper, right? A lone sniper who may or may not be be a part of the CIA, right? So they get like change the rules of engagement, to have to deploy more National Guard troops to to DC and as well as other major cities, in order to get ready for martial law, right? In order to get ready, for the rebellion against the people, even though we know for a fact, man, is that the average U.S. citizen doesn't want to deal with that crap, man. It's basically the same fucking playbook that Esau uses, man. That order of kill, right? He causes the problem, and so he can get a reaction, so he can bring the fucking solution, man. And that perfectly describes the two horns like a lamb, but him speaking as a dragon. So let's get that right. Yeah, Revelation 13, and I believe it is. Revelation 13, starting at verse 11, right? And it says here, and I beheld another beast coming out of the earth, and he had two horns like a lamb, and spake as a dragon, right? Talking about Esau's, left right paradigm, right? or Esau, dividing up, dividing the people, in this left right party system, or red versus blue, or however the fuck Esau wants to divide these people, right? And then he creates the problem. He sets up two national guards to get shoot by by this foreign lone gunman who might actually be working for the CIA, just so he get a response or a reaction, so we can implement more wicked policies, right? Basically this fucking devil Esau, right? He's basically killing more people to implement more policies to kill more fucking people, man. This is why this nigga this is why this nigga Esau has got to get taken out of power, man. And if the Lord doesn't speed up the time, man, no flesh on earth will be saved, man. This devil, man, he's gonna go out and try to kill everyone. But you know what? That's okay, man, because that's what that's what the Lord wanted this devil to do, right? That goes into that Revelation 12 verse 12. The devil coming down with great wrath because he knows he has but a short time in rulership, man.
And that's why what does the scriptures talk about? A house divided against itself cannot stand. Right? You got these people saying, fuck the Republicans, fuck the Democrats. When really, I mean, it's just this devil controlling everything. You know, and these people aren't what you call like a catch-22 of just blaming each other, right? But these people are this is why they have to get destroyed because they just weren't ordained to understand this. The real men of the Lord, they understand that this there's more wicked people, higher up controlling the scenes, right? And I got a precept if I could bring a few out.
Go ahead, Doc.
This is the book of 2 Corinthians 2:11. Lest Satan us, for we are not ignorant of his devices. So we can't be. These people in the world, they get fooled by these manipulation tactics. And I also want to bring out this precept that we always bring out in the book of Job 9:24. The earth is given into the hand of the wicked. He covereth the faces of the judges thereof, if not where and who is he? And that's talking about Esau Edom, the so-called white man. Yeah.
This
Let me see.
and 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 um and and and, and what's it called? Let's get Revelation 12 out. All right. So all right, so we get the spirit going. Revelation 12. Therefore rejoice, ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them. Woe, meaning destruction to the heavens of the earth and of the sea. For the devil is come down unto you having great wrath, because he knoweth he hath but a short time. Right, this devil knows he has but a short time in rulership. So what is he doing, man? He's setting up the people against each other, including his own people, right? And what and just like you said, Ak, like what, you see the Egyptian against the Egyptian, or you see Esau as that house divided, right? And why are we seeing them divide against each other? Well, that's the Lord Yahweh Bashim Yashai taking them down, because that's them falling out, about to fall out of rulership, right? This devil thinks he can control his own house being divided. But what this devil doesn't realize, or he might realize, we don't know. We don't actually know how the Lord makes these people think, right? Right, let's just say, what they don't actually realize is, the Lord's caused him to do all these, because is because that's the Lord Yahweh Bashim Yahushai, ultimately taking these devils down, man, out of rulership. So let's get that precept. A house divided they cannot stand. And that's Mark chapter 3 verse 25. Uh, we'll start at verse 23, right? Mark chapter 3. Let's get this in the blue letter. Paste. Mark chapter 3. All right, and this is Yahushai speaking, right? Right, right. So this was mainly the passage, about the I guess the scribes and the Pharisees, accusing Yahushua of using left-handed, left-handed power, but then Yahushua rebuked them, right? So picking up at the verse of Mark chapter 3 verse 23, it says here, and he called them unto him, Saki, and he called them unto him and said unto them in parables, how can Satan cast out Satan? And if a kingdom be divided against itself, that kingdom cannot stand. And if a house be divided against itself, that house cannot stand. And if Satan rise up against himself and be divided, he cannot stand, but hath an end. Right? No. Right. So basically, right. That was Yahweh prophesying against against these devils, right? Is because is because Yahushua, saw how Esau is gonna fall, right? And basically how this devil is falling right now is amongst the house of Esau, man. These people, man. This nation is divided, man. They're divided in ideologies, class, gender, Esau's basically through, man. He's at his end, right? And now what Esau is doing, right? He's dividing the people up, people up more, through psyops, right? Right, and ultimately, right, Esau's gonna Esau's ultimately gonna destroy himself. Via these ICBM nuclear missiles, right? Once that MOTB or that mark of the beast, it gets implemented, right? That's him at the how can you say, that's him at the at the precipice of him. Of him implementing his Tower of Babel, right, which is basically his NWO
And
yeah, of him trying to get that pseudo blessing back, or him trying to get the blessing back, through pseudo means, man.
I want to bring up verse. This is the book of Proverbs 22:3. It says, "A prudent man foreseeth the evil and hideth himself, but the simple man pass on and are punished." And brother and Salah, and I also want to bring out, um, basically, if you see these things that are about to come, you shouldn't be in the spirit of fucking prepping guns and prepping, all this bullshit, because that's Esau's idea of getting delivered out of this place. We have to depend on Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai, right? We see the things coming. We see what's gonna come down. And you have to just you have to gain this what is it, gain the oil in your lamp, right? And that oil in your lamp, it's talk about wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, not not preparing no fucking getting guns and guard dogs and getting land. You know what I'm saying? You know, we see all these things happening. Esau, he's getting ready to create what do you call those false flag, double F, right? Events.
The whole wag the dog scenario, right? As Elder Malcolm puts it, right, and these carnal ass people, right, mainly these Edomites, and some of these 2/3, right, they think that their gun, having all this ammunition, having a damn bunker can save them from the coming destruction, but none of these, like as you said, Ak, None of these things can deliver you, man, unless you have Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai, man. The man of the Lord, they're prepping by staying prayed up, man. Praying to Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai, repenting, daily, or as much as they could, man. And and like you said, Ak, keeping that oil in your lamp, and how are we doing that, right? You, yeah, by 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 going into this word, watching the brothers' videos, right? Starting with our apostles and elders on down, right? Staying within the doctrine of Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai, man. Which is ultimately salvation for the elect of Israel. Yeah, right. Us receiving them new spiritual bodies. So we can live and rule in righteousness. And us never sinning again. And these other heathen nations, going, serving their captivity, right? Double for what they did. That's prophecy, man. That's what's to come, man. And not know, oh well, if I have a bunker and if I have a gun, if I wait it out, everything's gonna go back to normal. And no, it's not gonna go back to fucking normal, man. We at the end of Esau's kingdom, right, and just like what the brother Al saw posted, man. Obadiah chapter 118, man. Man, after that 1,000 years of captivity, man, Esau, man, Esau's gonna cease to exist, man, for all the wickedness that he's done and what he's about to do, man. Like Esau, man. If I'm not mistaken, he's killed amongst he has wrongfully and unjustly killed millions upon billions of people, right? And he's about to kill even more people, man. But the Lord's gonna ordain this because judgment has to take place, right? But Esau's still gonna have to pay for that shit, man.
That's the righteousness of the Yahweh Shai Shai, because these Edomites, they think they can just come in from the back door. And we knew one Edomite in particular, and he was saying shit like, I'm so glad the curses have been lifted upon me, and broken from my family. They're bringing out all these doctrines, bringing up all this nonsense. But when you go back into it, these people are just destined for destruction. you know and they're finished, man. you know
Esau, them curses ain't gonna lift on you. They starting to come on you, man. That's like these niggas think that Esau thinks that he hears the truth, man. All he thinks he can get saved. Well, no, man. That it's can condemn you even more, man. Man, that's why a lot of them like to avoid the book of Obadiah because Obadiah chapter 118, it says right here, and the house of Jacob shall be a fire, and the house of Joseph shall be a flame, and the house of Esau shall for stubble, and they shall kindle in them and devour them, and there shall not be any remnant of the house of Esau, for the Lord Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua hath spoken it. Right. Right. So the line of Esau, man, they're gonna cease to exist, man, for all the wickedness that they have caused, man. And there's even another precept to prove that if the Spirit can allow me to get to bring it out.
And when have you ever seen a pastor talk about the book of Obadiah? I can't even recall one time.
None, because none, because why? Because they signed that that 501c3 charter, and they know for a fact it condemns them in their spirit because they know their ass is about to get destroyed. They don't even know how to break down the book of Revelation properly too, because the book of Revelation also condemns them, right? He that leads into captivity shall go into captivity.
And another thing I wanted to just bring out, it's kind of off topic, but just speaking of those pastors, right? When you're watching some of the brothers' YouTube videos, I don't know if you brothers get the same thing, but sometimes YouTube will autoplay a next video of some Christian pastor, some Edomite, right? Preaching, and you hear, and then you might be listening to a video, and then you hear this thing come on, you're like, listen, like, what the fuck is this guy talking about? It shows how really how off these people are, and how These people, these pastors, man, they have no understanding, whatsoever. They just completely fucking through. Right? You even have those you. I think you made a. I don't know if you made a video on it, but all these Christian churches, all these people are pretending to be like calling up Christian churches, right? For EBT money for support for food for like children and stuff. These Christian churches didn't even want to donate anything. They want to give no food because they don't give a fuck about you. They just care about your money, right? Don't go run into fucking pastor pork chop in the day of judgment, man. 'Cause a lot of these people, man, they're gonna get fucked up. They're gonna go to their churches. Go to their fucking baby daddies. They're gonna be the first people to be eaten, though. They're gonna get fucking destroyed, man. You know?
Hey, man, just like in 70 AD, man, the sheep are gonna scatter, and they gotta turn onto can. They Slocky. They're these people, man. They're gonna turn onto cannibalism again, just as it says, man, in the book of Deuteronomy. If I'm not mistaken, they shall eat their kids in the siege in secret, man. That's gonna happen again, but but on a much larger scale, man.
But think
These people,
about it, man.
these people are through.
Think about it. If you in a house and shit's hitting the fan, and you go outside, you're gonna get fucked up, right? Or what are you gonna do? You're gonna basically do spin the bottle, and you'll pick and choose, which baby you're gonna eat first. You know, a lot of these people are gonna end up doing that, right? No more fucking food. You're gonna be down to your last fucking crumb. So you're gonna start eating your own children, right? Your own animals, your own. You're gonna eat your fucking. You know, eat your. These people are just gonna bug the fuck out, man. Then someone else is gonna come in your house and then eat you, right? That whole spear, the Yahweh Shemi outside about to take the pride away from these fucking people, man. And then they would have wished, they would have hearkened unto the word of the prophets, right? But the Lord's gonna have to show these people the hard way.
But the Lord Yahweh he's gonna utterly humble these fucking people, man. Because why? Because as the scripture said, they say they fucking walked in great pride, right? Right. Let's get that real quick. All right, and this is Second Ezra chapter 8, verse 50. For many great miseries shall be done to them, in the latter time shall. So Slaki, let me read from the beginning. For many great miseries shall be done to them, that in the latter time shall dwell in the world, because they have walked in great pride. But understand, and that thou for thyself, and seek out the glory for such as be like thee. Yeah, right. And that's speaking of the remnant, right? The hopeful elect, right? While all these people, right? Mock, scoff, were proud or arrogant, had that haughty look to them, man. The Lord Yahweh Shem Shai, man, he's gonna humble them drastically. They're not gonna have any food to eat, no water to drink. They're gonna return on the cannibalism, and then they're gonna take that micro C up, and then ultimately they're gonna get fucking destroyed with that ICBM nuclear missile, man. Man, the Lord's he's gonna shame and humiliate them, man, and we're gonna laugh, man, when the shit happens, man, because the scriptures speak on them. I will mock when your fear cometh. I will laugh at your calamity. Roughly paraphrasing. And brother Al-Sab, going back to Obadiah chapter 118, right? When the house of Esau is gonna get utterly destroyed. Right. I have the precept right here in the book of Job, chapter 18, right? We'll get to the main point, right? Job chapter 18, starting at verse 18. He shall be driven out from the light into the darkness, right? Speaking of Esau, right? And chased out of the world. He shall neither have son nor nephew among his people, nor any remaining in his dwellings, right? And why I talk about son or nephew is because now that's mainly speaking about Esau's seed line, sperm line, right? All the men are going to be gathered up, They're gonna get thrown into that pit, and they're gonna get fucking burned, man.
Yeah, there's gonna be no more offspring for these fucking devils, man. You know, these people out here still thinking they can, cleave on, build up land. They're on completely different doctrines. Now you want to fucking come in when you start hearing the message about your ass gonna get destroyed.
Folly, man. Man, they there's I'm gonna say this right now. There is no salvation, for the heathen, man. The natural heathen, for the natural heathens and Gentiles, man. Man, they're gonna face their judgment, because that's what salvation is for. It's for the remnant of Israel to be saved from that destruction. They're the ones that are exempt from that coming destruction, while everyone else is going to get destroyed, right? That's why when it talks about them having the mark, the law. Well, where it says touch not them that have the mark of exemption, and we're gonna get that. Come not them that have right here, Revelation chapter 13, verse 17, and we're already there. Oh, no, Salaki, that's the wrong one. It's the wrong one. I meant Ezekiel. Salakia. I messed up. I meant to say Ezekiel 9 verse 6. Salakia. I was bugging out there for a second, but when we're talking about the excuse me, when it's talking about the Thawa, man, that's it means the ones that have that mark of exemption, exempt from that coming judgment, while everyone else is gonna have to go through that hell, that that judgment, man. These people, they have to pay for what they did, man. Man, because those are the ones that are not covered under the blood of Yahushua, because Yahushua is only here for his elect, his remnant. So I'm gonna read Ezekiel 9 verse 6. It's here. I'm gonna read Ezekiel 9:6, right? Because this is the judgment that's gonna fucking happen to you people, right? You heathens, you 2/3, and especially you fucking devils, right? Slay utterly, old and young, both maids and little children, and women. It said women here twice, both maids and women, because why? Women are the most wicked, wicked ones out here, man. As the scripture as the scripture says. All wickedness is but little to a woman. Let the portion of the sinner fall upon her, right? But come not near any man upon whom has the mark. And if you go into the Strongs and you go to the word mark, right? That goes into the word thawa.
Strong's H8420, Tav.
The thawa in the Paleo Hebrew mean desired mark. A mark or a sign of exemption, right? Those are the people, right? That the Lord Yahweh Bashim Yahushai, is going to exempt, from that judgment, right? Which is read out here in Ezekiel 9 verse 6. From all the wickedness that that these people do. Then they began at the ancient men which were before. Wasakia. Let me continue on. And began at my sanctuary. Then they began at the ancient men which were before the house, right? And how do we know who are the ones that had that mark of exemption, right? Well, we're gonna read it right here. Well, it's right here in Ezekiel chapter 9 verse 4, right? Right. Same chapter. Thwadi Yahweh Bashim Yahushai, and it says here, and the Lord Yahweh Bashim Yahushai said unto him, go through the midst of the city and in the midst of Jerusalem, right? So that's where wherever Israel scattered, right? Because remember, Israel's a people before they're a place, and set a mark upon the foreheads of the men that sigh and cry for all the abominations that that be done in the midst thereof, right? So the men out there, starting with the apostles and elders, and the men on down that teach the likewise doctrine, Lord willing, those are the ones of the hopeful elect, the ones that potentially, that have that mark of exemption from this coming destruction, right? While everyone else, man, their asses are pretty much cooked, man. They have to face that hell. Right. And the brother Alsop, he added right here, Revelation chapter 13, verse 10. Man, this is what your pastors and your priests, right? In them harlot houses, right, or them whole houses. This is what they're not gonna read you in church, right? And it says here, he that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here's the patience and the faith of the saints, right? And who are the people that brought who into captivity? Well, it's you fucking Edomites and you other heathen nations, right? You're the ones that brought Israel into captivity. All right, and the book of Psalms 83, proves it because it talks about that, that confederacy of nations. Right, and it says here, God employed to confound his enemies. Psalms chapter 83, verse 1. Keep not thou silence, O Yahweh, hold not thy peace, and be not still, O power. For lo, thine enemies make a tumult, and they that hate thee have lifted up the head. They have taken crafty counsel against thy people, and that's what you're seeing right now, man. That crafty counsel at work, with those National Guard shootings in D.C., right? Involving the CIA and all these alphabet, government agencies, and consulted against thy hidden ones, right? Again, the government agencies, the hidden ones, and speaking of the wicked elites too, man. They have said, "Come, let us cut them off from being a nation, and the name of Israel may no more be in remembrance." So they tried making us forget our history, but the remnant, right? Speaking in the book of Baruch, right? Israel coming back into remembrance, right? For they have consulted together with one consent that they are confederate against thee. All right, and it lists out the nations, right? The tabernacles of Edom, you so-called white people; the Ishmaelites, you so-called Muslim worshiping Arab people; of Moab, and right, you so-called Chinese people, and the Hagarenes, more Ishmaelites; Gabal, which I think are more Ishmaelites; Ammon, you so-called Japanese; and Amalek, the head of Esau, the chief of Esau, you so-called JOO Ish people, right? You fucking little hats. The Philistines, Hamites, and the inhabitants of Tyre, Assur, you Syrians, your modern day Iraqis, also joined with them, and they have hope in the children, and they have hope in the children of Lot, Salah, right? Right, so so these are the enemies of Israel, right? All these other heathen nations, right? They're gonna fucking go down, right? Because at the end of the day, at the end of the day, well, although they do play their a major part, or their supporting roles in prophecy, right? At the end of the day, they don't matter to Yahweh Bashim Yahushai, man. The Lord only cares about Israel and no other nation, because the scripture says, man. The other nations are all right. Isaiah chapter 40, verse starting at verse 17, right? It says here, all nations before him are as nothing; they are counted to him less than nothing and vanity. To whom then will you liken Yahweh, or what likeness will you compare him to, right? So basically, right, the Lord only cares about the nation of Israel, right, because the nation of Israel are the only ones, right? The descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, right, in the 12, right? They're the only ones, ordained, or the ones that have made a covenant with the Lord, man, through sacrifice, right, and no other nation has done that, right, the Lord Yahweh Bashim Yahushai, man, he's gonna resurrect the tabernacle of David, right, or the house of David, which is gonna be the new governing body of earth, on earth, man. And and the brother also posted, right, for 1 Peter chapter 2 verse 9, but ye are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, an holy nation, meaning set apart, man, a peculiar people, that ye should shew forth the praises of him who hath called you out of the darkness into his marvelous light. Second Ezra chapter 6 verse 56. As for the other people which come from Adam, thou hast said they are nothing but like unto spittle, and hast like an abundance of them unto a drop that falleth out of a vessel. So the Lord doesn't he doesn't really give a shit about the other nations. He only cares about Israel, and specifically the remnant of Israel, right? Which is the tabernacle of David, right? That's what the Lord is going to resurrect, right? Who's going to deliver from this coming destruction. Zechariah chapter 2 verse 8. For thus saith the Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahshai Sabaoth, meaning his armies, after the glory hath he set me unto the nations which spoiled you, right? So these other nations spoiled you, for he that toucheth you toucheth the apple of his eye, man. So these other nations, man, they gotta face that fucking judgment, man. There's no other way, man. There's no fucking Gentile grafted in, man. The only Gentiles that are gonna get saved, right? Are the Israelite foreigners scattered amongst the heathen that look like the heathen, but their seed line goes back unto Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, man. Those are the only people are going to get saved, man. The remnant, right? So when it talks about that mixed multitude in the book of Revelation, right, it's talking about Israelite foreigners, man. Not you regular heathen or Gentile nations, man. You motherfuckers are gonna have to face that judgment. Are gonna have to face that judgment. That destruction, man. Going back to Ezekiel chapter 9. Verse 6, right? Because why, man? Because you touched the apple of the Lord's eye, right? It says right here in Zechariah chapter 2 verse 8, man. You other nations, right? Y'all the enemies of Israel. So it's only fair, man, that that after your rulership, man, you gotta face that judgment. And that goes to show you, man, that the Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, he's a balanced power. Right, and we're gonna close off with one last precept, to drive home the point. Yeah, all right, Amos chapter 9 verse 11, right? And that day will I raise up the tabernacle of David that is fallen, and I will close up the breaches thereof, and I will raise up his ruins, and I will build it as in the days of old. Oh, right. So that's what you're seeing right now, man. The men that go out there in the highways and hedges. Starting off with the men of Great Millstone, GMS, starting with the elder apostle Tahara on down. And the brothers out there that teach the likewise doctrines, right? Right, Lord willing, that's the hopeful elect, man. That's the remnant. That's the house of David. That's going to get built up, and hopefully be delivered, right? And here's what's going to happen after that, right? Verse 12, that they may possess the remnant of Edom and all of the heathen, right? So you Edomites and the rest of you heathens, man, you motherfuckers are gonna go into captivity, man. Plain and simple, right? There's no refuting or arguing against the scripture, man. That which are called by my name, saith the Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, that doeth this. Behold, the days come, saith the Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, that the plowman shall overtake the reaper, and the reaper and the treader of grapes, him that soweth the seed, and the mountains shall drop sweet wine, and all the hills shall melt, and I'll bring again the captivity of my people Israel, and they shall build up the wasted cities and inhabit them, and they shall plant vineyards and drink the wine thereof, and they shall make the gardens and eat the fruit of them, right? So the Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, man, ultimately he's going to restore the nation of Israel and bring you other heathen nations, and especially you Edomites into captivity, right? And that's basically the end, the ultimate end goal right there, man. So with that, we're gonna end off this lesson right here. Hope this lesson's been edifying you Akim and you feel Akwath, and with that, we have to say, call Halayim La, Abanawa, Yahweh,
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 Ba'ashem,
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 Yahweh
Yahushai,
Shai, Ba'ashem,
Ba'ashem, Rakakadash.
Rakakadash. All right, double honors and respect to our apostles and elders, a great millstone who well taught us his truth. I would also like to say peace and salutations to the Lord's elect, the hopeful elect in the 1/3. This is your brother Salah.
Brother Brock.
Shalom.
And with that, to say shalom. And until next time.